I'll go ahead and begin. Good afternoon. Until further notice, Civic Center Revitalization Committee meetings will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of California Government Code Section 54953E, added by Assembly Bill 361, which allows the city to use teleconferencing and to provide the public an opportunity to address the committee via a call-in option or an internet-based service option during a proclaimed state of emergency. During the state of emergency related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and in the interest of public health and safety, the committee members will be participating in the committee meeting via a virtual teleconference platform. Additionally, the committee is providing a virtual participation option for members of the public. I will go over the specifics of how to join the webinar and will give details on how the public can offer their public testimony. Today's committee meeting will be held virtually using the Zoom webinar platform. Members of the public can join the meeting by computer, tablet, or smartphone by accessing the link which is listed on the meeting notice and agenda on the committee webpage. To join the Zoom webinar by telephone, please dial 1-669-254-5252. When prompted, input webinar ID 161-340-8303. This information is also available on the agenda. When the chair introduces the item you would like to comment on, you will raise your hand by either tapping the raise your hand button on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, or by pressing *9 on your phone. You'll be taken in the order in which you raise your hand. You may only speak once on a particular item. When I indicate it is your turn to speak, I will call you by your name as it appears on the Zoom webinar attendee list, or I will read out the last 4 digits of your phone number if you have called into the meeting. If you have joined the webinar by computer, tablet, or smartphone, you will receive a pop-up notice to select to unmute your device. If you have called into the meeting by cell phone or landline, press *6 on your phone to unmute yourself. I will review these instructions briefly again when the public comment period on an item is open. Please wait until the item you wish to speak to has been called before raising your hand to speak. If you raise your hand during a non-comment period, your hand will be lowered. When you are announced as the next speaker, please unmute yourself and offer your comments. Also, please mute the volume on your TV or computer before you begin to speak.
Thanks, Chris. I'll now call the roll. When I say your name, please unmute yourself. And I know you'll probably be letting some more people in, Chris, so I'll try to circle back as they come on. Lori Black. Present. Bridget Brashear.
Present.
Betsy Brennan.
Present.
Mark Cafferty, I know is joining. Julie Coker. Julie Corrales. Steve Cushman.
Here.
Colleen Fitzsimons.
Present.
Denise Garcia. Martha Gilmer.
Present.
Alan Jin. Joel Hermosillo.
Present.
Donna Jones. Jennifer Luce.
Present.
Jack McGrory.
Present.
Mark Nelson.
Present.
Bill Ponder.
Present.
Stephen Russell.
Present.
Dr. Ricky Shabazz. Tony Young. Mike Suquette.
Here.
Did I miss anyone? Okay, thank you for your attendance. We do have a quorum. And I'd now like to turn it over to the mayor for some remarks.
Well, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to get on here with some pretty awesome San Diegans, just to share my appreciation for the work that you all have done over the last 4 months. I know this is the final regularly scheduled meeting of this committee. And it seemed an appropriate time to come and certainly to thank all of you, but in particular the chair, Jamie Bradford, who I know this has been a lot of effort on your part, Jamie. Please extend my appreciation to the chamber for lending your talents, considerable talents to this effort. But really to all of you, I also want to acknowledge the subgroups. I wanted some folks to bring some organization and some thought to this thing, and you guys thoughtfully organized yourselves into subgroups. So to Betsy, Julie, Jennifer, and Steve, thank you for your leadership of your specific subgroups, and of course to every member of this committee. What you've been able to do is help me do in a short amount of time what I think is necessary to move this whole project forward. Many of you know we've attempted this in the past multiple times unsuccessfully. This is going to be different, and it required having intelligent individuals here to help us sort of suss out what's priority, maybe the best approach to increase our possibility, our potential for success. The fact that you could vet out things like the state's HCD and what they are looking for from the city, to the San Diego Civic Theater, which is an important current occupant of this property, Sandag, of course, the San Diego's our own urban division, and how we can align this with our downtown community plan. These are all important tasks that need to be done. You did them for us, and the work product that you're voting on today is the reflection of that. Reminder that goal, and I think this aligns with what where you landed. First goal is a new city hall that is praiseworthy, not cringeworthy, worthy of our wonderful city employees who are working downtown and who I'd like to see stay downtown, as well as the second priority around housing, a lot of housing. Betsy and her team, Joel as well, I know deal with the issue of unhoused folks up close and personal every single day. Many of you also in other shapes of your life or other roles in your life deal with this. I think we have a potential of really being able to take a huge bite out of our unsheltered and our housing affordability crisis with this property. What you're able to do over the course of these meetings, this public vetting, this interaction with stakeholders is going to produce a product that we're going to be able to put out into the world, and I think take what will be hopefully global interest in this property and really inform it with a San Diego point of view, one that will make sure that no matter who chooses to respond, that they'll be clearly on notice about what we hope and expect for this once in a generation opportunity. My only ask of you, as if I haven't asked you enough already, is to stay engaged in this process, potentially through additional meetings as they may be necessary, at council hearings when the council chooses to consider your work and to take additional subsequent steps to make sure this becomes a reality, but also through the process going forward. You know, under Jay's timeline, and Jay, thank you as always for hanging in there with me. Under Jay's timeline, you know, our hope is to put out NOA in about a month or two's time. Once that hits the street, my hope is that we can convert this group into real advocates for the project, recognizing that this can't just be about politicians who want a new building. This is really about a transformational project for our city. And I hope that all of you will join me in being cheerleaders for a project to transform the central core of downtown. And finally give us both the city hall that is worthy of a city of our caliber, as well as the housing that we so desperately need in order to house the San Diegans that we need to power this local economy. So that's enough from me. I would just say, again, thank you for vetting all of this stuff. Thank you for your considerable work. Everyone on here is an executive professional whose time is extremely valuable. The fact that you'd contribute so much of your valuable time to your city confirms what I said at the beginning. This is a great group of San Diegans who cares deeply about this city. And I just wanted to be here to express my appreciation. Jamie, thank you for letting me share a few of those words.
Thank you, Mayor. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but while we have you, does anyone have any questions?
Oh, please. Absolutely.
Yeah, once the NOA is out, what is your expectation in terms of the progress towards what would be, I think, the first phase of this in terms of being able to say to folks, it looks like this project's going to actually be built around this year or this year, 2026, 2029, you know, Todd.
Yeah, great question, Bill. And that's why I pressed Jay and Chris and others for under our belief is that you issue the NOA March 1. We there have, gosh, Jay, I'm gonna get this wrong. I always get this wrong. 60 days for the folks to respond, and then 90 days for us to consider.
That's the minimum. We're probably thinking, given the complexity, to maybe a 90-day for them to respond, and then perhaps a 90 days for staff to review.
So that takes us to basically toward the end of the year for what would be a hearing not dissimilar from what you saw from the sports arena solicitation, where we would take, the respondents, and God willing, there'll be many, and then we can vet those out and have the council narrow down or eventually select an individual. To your question, but at that point, I think once we have someone that we'll go from serial dating to seriously dating to on our way to getting married to. I think that marriage is pretty much when you're on board, this is going to happen. But my goal is for us to have a very clear vision forward for our partner and what they would propose on the site. My suspicion is we're going to get a lot of different suggestions for this site, and that would be great. I hope that this group can help me to choose amongst a series of really cool options for what to do with all these different properties. The point is that we would sort of settle on a partner and a vision before the end of the calendar year, and then probably spend not insignificant amount of time on the due diligence, the legal work, the financing. So while I acknowledge that we're still quite a ways away from being able to put a shovel in the ground, my commitment is to use every day that I have in this office to make sure this gets done. While I'd like to sit in the completed building, I'm sober to the reality that's probably unlikely. But what I want to do is make sure that there's no way this project can get turned back. What we have is something that will be irreversible in terms of the revitalization of these properties. So hopefully that helps with the timeline, Bill. If there's not another question for me, I might put it out just to help me. With regard to the Civic Center question, I know you all had the presentation by Carol and company. It seemed to me that, Martha, you've built a couple of venues recently. You got some updated costs. Any thought from this group? I read the draft report, and I think it leaves it sort of open about the future for the Civic, but would welcome different voices on that matter as we sort of weigh what this will look like going forward.
So I can maybe start. Carol and I spoke a lot in the last few days. There was this plan in 2004, 2005, which was roughly $53 million. And best as I can see from what the architects reported, a lot of that was infrastructure and ADA compliance. It was some work on the exterior, on the facade, and repurposing or reconfiguring the seats. There was no touching of the stage or the pit, as far as I can tell. There was some improvements in sound system and some minimal replacement of the acoustical cloud, some minimal acoustics. So I worked with the folks that are working with us on Jacob Civic Center just to look at what that would mean carried out into the present today, which would still need 5 or 6 years. And you're looking at minimally $100 million for that. My own guess is that what really needs to be done is a due diligence study as to what the theater needs. I don't think you're going to build a brand new civic center with state-of-the-art beautiful buildings and leave that facade in the middle of it. So facade is critical, but the inside, the interior needs a better seating configuration, better acoustics, probably updated stage equipment rigging because it's that much older than even when it was last looked at. And so, 125, 150. I've been wrong before with projections. I know how it goes over. But fortunately, the shell was worth every penny of that. I also looked at, gave some thought to moving it. It doesn't have to go up on that site. The advantage of that is you can keep the building performing while you build a new site, but then you're going to have the acquisition of the site costs. And we even looked at what it would have taken for Jacobs Music Center as a new facility in a different location. And it was in the time frame of right now, and I thought minimally that'd be $350 million, and that's not with an opera / Broadway theater house. So, there's some innovative people out there working with reused materials that are bringing those numbers down, and then there are others that are higher. But you're certainly going to talk higher costs for a new facility than what you have now. I think this is a building that is unique in its purpose. It can't go there's no other building here, there's no other venue that those performances can go to. There's not another, I mean, the pit is not adequate as it stands now, but there is no other of this size for our audiences. And with Betsy was sharing with us some really fantastic numbers of the number of people moving downtown and who they are in their profile, and to have it remain as part of the heart of the city, so that you would have a concert hall and another performance venue. You really have your arts district within a few blocks, I think is preferred. And I think it's an essential part of the culture of the city. But you would be surprised if I didn't say that. So that's what I know on the subject.
Well, Martha, you've given us two great venues, or you're one venue and one on the way. So I think your feedback matters. Mark, did you want to weigh in on that?
And sorry, the only other thing I would say is, let's not go for good enough. You know, let's not put a Band-Aid on it. Let's not say, let's just modify it in this way. I think that you know, you look up and down the coast, and obviously LA has the incredible venues, and San Francisco needs an overhaul as well. Seattle has a great hall, but we should really go for it if we're going to do it, because then we would really have some state-of-the-art performance venues here. So that would be my only other suggestion.
Mark, you want to give a word?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And thank you for your support of this committee's efforts, and your staff has done an excellent job supporting us as well. So thank all of them. I would only say, of course, I have a bias. Oldest brother spent his whole life in the theater management business. And I used to have season tickets to the opera, but I think from a downtown and a land use perspective, it's important to have more than 8-hour traffic downtown. And so the Civic Theater provides that after hours vitality that is so important to that section of downtown. One need only, as you know, Mayor, walking outside your building, see the chain link fence around the California Theater and see what that just kind of sags that area. So my view, even from a land use perspective, is to have the theater there is important. Maybe we were subliminal in showing our pictures of Lincoln Center in the report, but I think that it is important. But to Martha's point, the costs are pretty, you know, they're pretty hefty. So it's what price we pay. But from my perspective, the theater is just an essential element of this effort, and that's kind of where I'm coming from. So thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Well, Jamie, I don't want to hijack your meeting. I did want to express my appreciation, and to what Martha was just saying. You know, listen, this is, in my judgment, 11 out of 10 on a political difficulty scale, right? Like this, it ain't 10 out of 10; it's 11 out of 10. So if we're going to do this, we have to do it right. And I really, my hope is that we can cast a fairly wide net and allow some very creative people to come in and tell us some what we can get here. And part of my job is to go out and sell it. My belief is I have all of you to help me do that. And to somebody Jennifer, I think, said in my office the other day, you know, we want to be bold. We want to take risks, not in a financial sense, not in that, but that we want to do something that is along the lines of what you did with the Shell, Martha. You know, something that really took people's breath away and really expressed what the city can do. I think we can be extremely practical and deliver something that's good for the taxpayers, while simultaneously delivering a downtown that Betsy can go and sell all around the world. Because Mark, I agree with you. If the visual is the California Theater, Betsy's not going to close that sale. That's for sure. So with that admittedly low bar set, let's aim higher than that. And again, an appreciation to all involved, and look forward to continuing to engage with you all in fixing this long needed fix. I've been here to fix street vending, vacation rentals, scooters. I'm much more excited to try and fix this particular long held civic problem. And if past is prologue, I think we'll get it done. So guys, thanks again for your service to your city. I deeply appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And thanks for pulling us together and putting your faith in us and really caring about these issues, about, you know, the importance of reviving the civic core and housing, of course, but also about providing space that functions for employees and serves our residents. So thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Thanks again, Jamie.
So going back to the agenda, we're on the chair's report. I only had a couple things, but building on what the mayor said, I wanted to make sure everybody knew that the working group chairs had an opportunity to meet with him last week. I think it went really well. They were able to express directly the work that you've done in the subgroups and the views of each of the groups. And as the mayor said, I was going to say that he certainly made it clear that he is committed to seeing this through, but he just shared that with you. Jennifer, Steve, I know Julie's not here. And Betsy, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything about that meeting to share with the group before we get to the agenda.
This is Jen. I really, maybe for the first time, was able to coalesce all of our points of view from each of the working groups. And it was amazing to me in articulating it to the mayor how unified the voice is. And so even though our focus, each of our focuses is a little different, I thought the message was very much the same and was so clear for the mayor's purposes. And I think we all should be super proud of that, because even though we were working in different rooms, different places, we came together with a unified vision. And it's really, really fantastic.
Betsy, you going to say anything?
I just wanted to thank the mayor and his team for that time. I felt like they very much were open and listening to us. And I felt the mayor's real commitment to this project and his team's real commitment to this project and the real openness to the committee and all of the things that we were talking about. And he asked a lot of questions, and I'm very proud of the work that this committee did and the amount of listening we did to the public. And I want to continue to listen to the public. And so just very happy to be here today and look forward to the next several months and the next several years and to all the participation going forward. So thank you.
So I would agree with Jennifer that each of us brought our body of work to the mayor and his staff. And I felt we were unified, remembering that this project has had 4 false starts. And so I felt good today when the mayor said, you know, we've got to stay focused on building a city hall. We've got to stay focused on housing, and that together we can do this. And I feel that, you know, he has confidence in the folks at the city to carry this forward under Jay's able leadership. And we've got to go to the council and then the public unified, because if we are not, you know, they will shoot holes in this just like they have 4 times before. So Todd understands that it's an 11 on a scale of 10. He knows what he's up against, but Jay, we have confidence you will take us to the promised land.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks again, everyone, for making the time to do that. The only other thing I would mention that's kind of fun is that the Convention Center Corporation contacted me on Friday afternoon and said they were going to nominate this group for an award at the Downtown Partnership. Actually, they're Create the Future Awards. And it's for the work we've done here. And I just thought I'd share that because while there are lots of people being nominated, so this is by no means a trophy for all of you, but I just thought it was nice to be recognized, and all of you have done so much work, and then some folks are appreciating it. So I thought I'd share that. But Betsy's not on the selection committee. You can't lobby her. So anyway, so that concludes my report. I will move on to staff report. Chris, do you have anything?
Yes, I did want to share with the committee that we received some public comment on the final report. I uploaded that public comment to the Civic Center Revitalization Committee public comment website. So I'll insert that link in the chat. And just to reiterate to the members of the public that they still have the opportunity to provide their feedback on the report. or any other related subject matter, even after this committee meeting, it can be emailed or physically mailed to me using the information that I'll post in the chat as well. And then I also wanted to explain the cadence of our meetings moving forward, given that today is the last regularly scheduled Civic Center Revitalization Committee meeting. Moving forward, we will not be meeting on a bi-weekly basis, but we will be able to call special meetings in the near future in compliance with the Brown Act. So if you would like to remain informed about special meetings, please be sure to subscribe for email updates in the committee website. And then just to, like kind of a lay of the land ahead per Jay's presentation to the City Council about 2 weeks ago, we are on track to release the notice of availability sometime in March. Responses will be due sometime in June. And between June and September is when we expect staff to be conducting an analysis of the responses. All of this to say that we're moving full steam ahead. And these are the dates that we'll want to keep in mind as we consider calling special meetings. The last little item is that we're still working on securing a date for the committee to present its findings to the City Council, but that hopefully will be sometime in February or March before the NOA is released. And that's all.
Thanks, Chris. Do we have any requests for continuance? Hearing none, I will now take up the discussion agenda, which is item 1, the final Civic Center Revitalization Committee report, and I'll turn it over to Jay. Oh, I'm
Thank
sorry,
you, Jay.
Chris, you have to,
Yeah, real quickly.
Chris needs to do his
The
thing
public
first, Jay.
Yeah. The public comment period for this item is now open. If you have already joined the Zoom webinar online or by phone, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. Members of the public who wish to provide virtual testimony must enter the virtual queue by raising their hand before the queue closes. The queue will close when the last virtual speaker finishes speaking or 5 minutes after the queue has opened, whichever happens first. To raise your hand, to speak, select the raise your hand button or press *9. Jay?
Thank you, Chris and Jamie. And maybe a general comment and probably echoing the mayor's comments and Jamie's comments, but pulling together 22 or so diverse individuals with diverse points of views and so forth, and being able to come together with, as Jennifer says, a very cohesive and harmonious report that captures all these diverse, interests. Also recognizing that our hands are a little bit tied because of the Surplus Land Act and so forth. I think this is going to be a great document coming out of this committee. What I attempted to do in preparing this, and want to make it real clear, no pride of authorship, no pride of finalization. I took basically the reports that came from each committee and tried to put them into one document, and so that it flowed, from maybe the visionary level to some of the principles to ultimately the tasks. And you can tell just even by that, perhaps which groups. I'm not going to go through page by page on this report. I think everyone's had an opportunity for at least 4 or 5 days to take a look at this. What we're hoping to do is to get the committee to finalize this report. If there's an A versus the that should be there, I don't know that we need to get to that level of minutia, but if there are, points that are being missed as I've tried to capture things, and by all means, you should, weigh in on that, and we'll take some notes. And it's conceivable that the committee can adopt this report with the following amendments or changes, whatever those might be, or accept it as is. Leave that open. The timetable, I know this was a question that was asked of the mayor, and Chris alluded to it a little bit as well, recognizing some people's, vacation or non-availability. What we're targeting is once this report is finalized, is have the committee, and it can be the committee, the subcommittee chairs, or it could be the full committee, whomever wants to be there, present this to the City Council. We're looking at possibly March 6th or 7th. as a possible date. We've not cleared that with the council president's office at all, but that's what we're sort of targeting. And then following that, staff would come back to the city council probably either on the 20th or 21st, or the 27th or 28th of March with the actual notice of availability. That hopefully captures, to the best we can within the NOA and the confines of the Surplus Land Act, the recommendations that came out of this committee, feedback that I've gotten from 2 council meetings, one in September and then one about a week ago, where I heard some input from them. And again, some of their input even we can't really capture because again of the Surplus Land Act. So some of that's even limited. And then let the NOA be out on the street for probably the 90 days before we come back to start doing the reviews and so forth. And then finally, and I had mentioned at one point, have people who are proposing on the NOA responding to it to meet with this committee for feedback and input. Maybe it doesn't have to be the whole committee. Maybe it could be the subcommittee chairs. It could be a select group of individuals. There's nothing magical about it. And if people are sort of tired or busy with their real jobs, staff can carry the torch, because I think this report and the information coming out of this committee is very well defined and so forth. Within the NOA, we'll either put a link to this report or even possibly attach the report. I've had conversations with HCD. They would want to see what this report looks like before they actually agree to whether or not it should be a link or an attachment. So that's just a little bit of a background, but I'm thinking whether we do a page turn or just open it up for comments on the report. Anything people would like to say, amend, or whatever.
Do you want to maybe walk through it a little?
Yeah, I'll share my screen, Jay.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. And I know there was also one thing, there was a comment made about the original cover that went out, I think, in the first draft, and that's more the port property, even though it's still part of the city. We changed the cover. We have some other options too that we can share with you later, but again, we wrote an introduction, talks about the areas under consideration, the full 6 blocks with a couple of maps as attachment A and B, the 2 sort of configurations of the maps. And then obviously we talked, we identified who the volunteer, who you all are, as another attachment. We sent a raw report over to our graphic folks, and they went and reconfigured it a little bit and put these photos in. Again, just like no pride of authorship from my standpoint. I know there's probably no pride of authorship from their standpoint if there's some photos or pictures that people want to otherwise suggest. We start out again at the high level with the vision on page 4 and 5, trying to break out the different points from I think it was Jennifer's committee, a subcommittee. We then took, starting on page 6, the guiding principles, the updated guiding principles that came out of the downtown partnership on pages 6 and 7. And some of the other information, I believe it came from Julie's subcommittee. Again, trying to make it flow, but not changing the intent or most of the words that came out of your various documents. And then finally, starting on page 8, took the economic development suggestions, recommendations as came out of that committee. And all these have been adopted by the full committee. They were presented at a couple of meetings ago by each of the subcommittees, and then the full committee adopted them. So that's why I felt comfortable including them. And then ends with conclusion, talking about this is sort of a once in a generation opportunity, and I think we all recognize it. Maybe a fifth in a generation, given the number of times this has been tried. I do believe, the Economic Development Committee recommendation of trying to separate a new city hall from the rest of the 5 blocks makes sense. We can work on parallel timeframes, but not be bogged down by the NOA process. How we proceed with the City Hall project is still open for discussion. I know the Economic Development Committee recommended a fee development approach, whether it's that approach or a public-private partnership or something to get that thing moving. We'll have a follow-up conversation with the City Council after the NOA hits the street, probably sometime by this summer to get that moving. And so we have the conclusions, and those are the attachments. And then, of course, we'll have some exhibits also attached at the end, which will be, the manifesto and some of the other documents, the questionnaires that aren't, in the body of the report, but they will still be part of the final report that would go out.
Are there any questions or comments for Jay? Are we a quiet committee today?
I just
I
think,
see some folks with their hands up, Jamie, Mike, and Stephen.
Thank you. I can't see the top row on my iPad. I apologize. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. Jay, thank you. And I just have one brief, stylistic, perhaps annoying comment, but I'm going to make it anyway. It just sort of clashes with my eardrums when I hear things like our hands are tied and the use of the word limitations in the report. And I don't want to sound totally Pollyanna or blind to the fact that the Surplus Land Act does have its requirements, but I feel like there might be some like scar tissue from the sports arena experience. And I think we should embrace what the state representatives presented to us and start thinking of the Surplus Land Act as our friend. And again, maybe this is out there for people, but that we get the chance to put out this NOA and engage developers who are going to create affordable housing and finance it the way that, is really going to meaningfully add to the housing stock, that we're going to be able to do a great city hall at the same time. And we just sort of remove that type of language from our language because number one, I think it seems inconsistent to say that and then say, but we're going to be bold and groundbreaking and fabulous, but we've got these limitations and our hands are tied and then get back into Eeyore. And so I just want us all to be aware of that. And so my specific recommendation is, again, just stylistic in the introduction when the paragraph, I think it's at the top of page 3 that begins recognizing certain limitations created by the State Surplus Land Act. We're going to do great things. And maybe just to reword that to say that, in conjunction with and following the, spirit and guidance of the State Surplus Land Act, we're going to do great things. And just sort of always remember to sort of switch our own paradigm a little bit and also project a different paradigm about this process. Just my 2 cents.
Thanks, Mike. Before we move on, or if Jay has a response, I inadvertently missed public comment. So let me go to that and we'll come back. Sorry, guys.
So again, to raise your hand, to speak, select the raise your hand button or input *9. I'll let you know it is your turn to speak. Unmute yourself by either selecting the unmute button or by inputting *6. We currently have 1 speaker in the queue. Chuck. Go ahead.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to concur with the mayor's appreciation of the committee. I think, the diverse opinions have been brought forth into Mr. Goldstone's draft. I think the draft is a good framework for the next phase. But I think what's missing in the report is any kind of discussion of the findings of the report and how they should be incorporated into the next phase, the developer selection process. That may be something that you may want to be thinking about. The second part is there a way, and this is probably a follow-on to the mayor's recommendation that you be the cheerleaders, is that you also hold the city and its staff to be accountable for the findings of the report. I don't think that is written in the report, but I think if you all are going to be the cheerleaders, that it's important that not only you, but also the citizens hold the city staff accountable for the findings so that they are implemented in any kind of development process. My biggest concern over the time has been the segregation of the Cobb building as a development for a new city administration building and what I would assume is a city hall project. I don't know how it would be integrated into the remaining, I'll call it the remaining 4 blocks, because the Ash Street sits also as a segregated block. Perhaps in the next phase, the city will give the potential developers the opportunity to look at the 6 blocks and give them an opportunity to say, yeah, well, we still want to do it on Cobb, or maybe they can make it work within the core of itself. So I think if the next phase says, well, you're going to do the Cobb first, I think that limits how public access, public plaza, Civic Theater Plaza, and a city hall will work. But I do want to thank you for your efforts, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck, and thanks for the letter you sent over as well. It was very thoughtful. Appreciate your participation in this process. Jay, did you want to respond to Michael?
We have John Brady in the public comment.
So sorry, John, go ahead.
John? John, I see you're unmuted.
He's gone.
John?
All right, let's see, maybe we can come back to him if he can get his audio working. We'll go to Jay for right now.
Sure, I was just going to comment on Mike's comments. If the committee wants, I have 0 problems. I mean, obviously we want to put as positive, foot forward as possible. No problems in modifying that language to try to remove words like limitations and hands are tied and so forth. So we can incorporate that in the final version.
Stephen?
Yes, thank you. I do hope we'll get back to John here, maybe after my comments. First off, I did want to thank Chuck Kaminsky for being just a diligent citizen watchdog on this process and giving really, really valuable input all the way along. Just as a point of reference, behind me is a picture of Hospital Sant Pau in Barcelona, which is about a 16-acre campus they built, expression of Catalan nationalism. And when we talk about architecture that speaks to who we are, this is that on steroids. It's about the same size site. It's amazing. If you get a chance to ever visit it, I highly recommend it. I want to thank Mr. Zucchett for his comments. I agree that with the SLA, Surplus Lands Act should not be a bitter pill that we have to swallow, but really a statement of the principles we're working on. So Mr. Goldstone, I appreciate your remarks about really just saying we're not just adhering, we're aggressively pursuing the principles of this act. We have this amazing opportunity that we're creating, and it has guidance, maybe not the limitations. And then last, I would like to ask if there's some ways that we can strengthen, when we talk about diversity, there is certainly a breadth of different experiences here in this committee. Not by every measure is it diverse possibly, but I do think that it has an incredible range of talents. I think we need to be sure that we make in our value statement for this project, I think perhaps in the listen section on page 5, that it's not just a matter of going out to the communities, but looking at cultural expressions that the current center, prior to being a homeless shelter, has been the home for so many different cultural expressions, whether it's graduations, it's high holidays. There's just an amazing range of things. And so to the extent that this is a setting that should support those activities, we really do need to go out to diverse communities to see what helps create their piece of this civic center. And so I don't know how we emphasize that diversity in the outreach, but I do think it's language we should be putting in there to really underscore the breadth of our cultural landscape here in San Diego.
I love all of your architect training coming back through, Steve. Jay, everything, does that sound good? I definitely appreciated those comments.
Yeah, and something like that, if somebody wants to propose some specific language that would capture those comments, I'd be happy to try to incorporate those as well.
Before we go to Julie, John Brady, are you able to join?
I hope so.
There you go.
My apologies, everyone. Sorry about that. I think I gave a very lengthy speech with no one paying any attention. So, so look, I just want to reach out as the director of Lived Experience Advisors. Obviously, we advocate for people that are experiencing homelessness and poverty in our community, and we definitely recognize the need that we have to have a thriving civic core. This is important, but as the leadership of our community, if we can't create diversity on site and in this site, how can we ask anyone to do the same? Any developer through every district in our city to engage, develop, and create affordable housing for every community in our city. And I also just have to look at this from the historical lens of what we've seen as a community, which is a focus on building coliseums and arenas at the expense of creating housing for people that can't afford to live here anymore and do the daily work that's required to have a thriving city. And even most recently, I'm hearing through the grapevine that even though the latest Midway developer claimed in front of City Council that they weren't going to be utilizing all the tax credits and Section 8 vouchers over the next 10 years to develop their affordable housing, it appears that they may be walking away from that. We've given away Qualcomm. We've given away the Midway District. We have given away even the Petco parking lot without a requirement for a public bathroom. And they used references to Father Joe's bathrooms, to the Neil Good Day Center bathrooms, to the Park and Market bathroom that's barely open, to say that they didn't need a bathroom in a public park in the city of San Diego in its core. So as an organization, I just ask all of you to think about this as we are creating the focus and the development of a core of a thriving city, which requires diversity of income, cultural diversity, et cetera, as we move forward. Because if we can't do it as a city, we can't ask others to do it elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes public comment.
Thank you, John and Chris. Julie.
Hi, all. I just want to thank my colleagues for developing this report. I haven't been able to engage on the committees as much as I'd like to, and I'm really grateful for all the time and effort that went into this. I saw on the agenda that this is the final. I'm hoping, as I'm hearing all these comments come out about little language tweaks, that we have an opportunity to send comments. I agree with Mike Zuget's comments around the framing of the Surplus Land Act and how it relate to that. I highly agree with John Brady's comments about, and someone right before him spoke to the importance of highlighting diversity in some of this language. And maybe it's kind of, I think it's there and it's sprinkled, but really bringing it together as one of the guiding principles of what diversity looks like across income levels. And then in reviewing the final draft, there's a couple of tweaks where I thought, coming from, someone who works in social and racial justice, there are a couple of statements that I think are a little controversial, and they don't have to be. I think we can clean it up to make them palatable to all folks in San Diego. Some around the land acknowledgement and around the missing middle language that I feel the missing middle narrative implies that there's low and extremely low housing being built, when really RENA numbers show the percentage is slightly higher. I mean, we need both desperately. So while the missing middle income is more financially profitable for developers, it's not any more needed than low and extremely low. So I think like those types of language, I hope we have an opportunity to send in comments and tweak. And I'm happy to work with John Brady, and I believe it was Stephen Russell who talked about, amplifying the diversity language in the report. Maybe S3 can put our brains together and find out where we can spruce up this language and make it really meaningful.
Yeah, I'd be pleased to work with you on that.
Sounds good to me. I'm looking at Jay.
Yeah, so my comment would be, and if this is, the pleasure of the committee and the committee chair, would be to avoid maybe having another meeting, although, that's up to the committee. An approach might be, and then I might have to turn to Chris as it relates to the Brown Act and so forth, make sure we're not in any violation. But if you want, maybe we give people some time frame, maybe by the end of this week, since today's Monday, so you have the rest of the week to get me your comments to this, because I know this is really the first opportunity to actually discuss the report. Get me your comments. I can try to incorporate them into a next version. We can mail it around and then possibly just do an email vote to say, okay, this looks good. I mean, because I'm assuming we're not, given these comments, we're not looking at wholesale changes to the report. So I would imagine that, if the core of this report seems acceptable, then adding some additional comments and or clarifications probably will not upset anybody or change somebody's position on this. So that might be an approach. I think by doing an email vote, as long as we report out, whether report out on our website or whatever, to comply with the Brown Act, that might work.
Yeah,
Yes.
if people want to go ahead and email me directly with their suggested edits, and then I can loop in Jay so that we can reflect that in the document. We'll get that updated in this document. It was, after all, a draft final for our review. And then I'll send it out again. So if you all send me your comments by the end of the week, and then if we can send out another version on the end of the beginning of next week with those revisions reflected. And if there are no member objections, then we should go.
Steve?
So I think, Jay, what they're talking about are a number of, I don't think they're controversial comments. And you've done a great job of writing the report. I would propose, because they're wordsmithing, I think, that you have the authority of the committee to update the language. But I didn't see anything that Julie said or John Brady said, you know, quite frankly, that was controversial. So I don't think we need another vote from that standpoint. I think, you know, if you feel that we need a vote, then you and Jamie should call us back together again. But I'm perfectly satisfied with giving you the power to move the process forward.
So why don't we, I could ask for a motion today and we will forward all of the clarifying and comments and editing to Jay and he'll recirculate that. If anybody has any real heartache or need to come back together and have a discussion, let me know and we'll call another meeting.
That approach works, if that's what the committee wants.
In the meantime, do we have a motion?
I so move, with maybe the understanding that the committee would have an opportunity to look at the, I'll call it stylistic and important tone changes. Like both Mike and Stephen raised good points, and I'd like to see those incorporated. But I agree with Steve that, Jay, you know how to do this. I don't think we all need to pitch in, but I think it would be important for at least this collective to kind of see the draft before it goes live. But that's kind of would be my motion.
Motion by Mark, second by Lori Black. Any further discussion before I call the roll? Okay, I am a yes. Lori Black,
Yes.
Bridget Brashear. You still with us? Betsy Brennan,
Aye.
Mark Cafferty, Julie Coker, Julie Corrales,
Hi.
Steve Cushman,
Yes.
Colleen Fitzsimons,
Yes.
Denise Garcia, Martha Gilmer,
Yes.
Alan Jin, Joel Hermosillo,
Aye.
Donna Jones, Jennifer Luce,
Aye.
Jack McGrory, I think we lost him, Mark Nelson,
Aye.
Bill Ponder,
Aye.
Stephen Russell,
Aye.
Dr. Ricky Shabazz, Tony Young, and Mike Suquette.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Congratulations, everybody. This is certainly not the end. I think it's the very beginning. So congratulations on all of your work and thank you. We now will move to committee comment, if there is any. If not, then we'll move to non-agenda public comment.
Non-agenda public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda but within the subject matter jurisdiction of the committee. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. The public comment period for non-agenda public comment is now open. If you have already joined the Zoom webinar online or by phone, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. To raise your hand to speak, select the raise your hand button or press *9. Members of the public who wish to provide virtual testimony must enter the virtual queue by raising their hand before the queue closes. The queue will close when the last virtual speaker finishes speaking or 5 minutes after the queue has opened, whichever happens first. When I let you know it is your turn to speak, unmute yourself by either selecting the unmute prompt that will appear on your device or by pressing *9 on your cell phone or landline. And with that, we have 2 hands up. Mr. Adrian Kwiatkowski.
Thank you, Christopher. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to the committee. This is exciting. This is visionary. We're doing the right thing for our city. The report was excellent. Thank you, Mr. Goldstone, for helping to put that together. You know, I do want to focus on 2 things. In one of the previous meetings, there was a conversation about maybe building a new city hall on the site of the current operations building. I don't know if that's still a viable idea, but that idea should be nixed because that's not a great location to include the community. It should be, you know, adjacent to the trolley. If you look at the proposal from 10 years ago, you could build a new city hall on the site of the old convention center, the old Golden Hall. while you're still occupying the current one. That was the plan from back then. And then you capture all the natural sunlight as the sun moves west. So, I think you should look at that. But using the operations building site as the site of a future building is not advisable. And then also just the name of the project, city administration building, communicates, bureaucracy, et cetera. So we should just continue to call it a city hall in all the documents. We're building a new city hall for our city. That's what this is about, a new place for the community. So those are my comments, but I want to thank all of you. It's been a great process. So thank you for all your leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Kwiatkowski. Chuck Kaminsky.
Thank you. Just a clarification so I understand. So the wordsmithing and any additional paragraphs will go to Mr. Goldstone. He'll prepare a revised final report, which will be circulated back again amongst the committee. Will it also be available online as a public document at that point?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. That's my only clarification. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That concludes non-agenda public comment. This meeting is the last regularly scheduled meeting of the Civic Center Revitalization Committee. The committee will continue meeting on an irregular basis on dates to be determined. Notice of future meetings will comply with the Brown Act and will be available online at the Civic Center Revitalization Committee website. The notice will also be distributed to those who have signed up to receive email updates from the committee. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. It's been a
Thank
real
you,
honor.
Jamie.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Good job, Jamie.
Thank you.